Hello, what's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to take a look at Python control structures. And if you don't know what Python control structures are, Python control structures are actually used to control the flow of execution of a program based on certain conditions or loops. Okay, Python actually provides several control structures, and they actually include number one, conditional statements. Which, when we talk about conditional statement, we're talking about making use of that of the if statement, elif, and that of the else statement. Okay, so that is just it for that of the conditional statements. And we also have the one that is actually called the loops. Loops is also a control structure in Python, which within this particular loops, we are going to actually deal with something like for loop, and we're also going to deal with something like while loop. Okay, and after that, the third one is actually called a control flow statement, which is a place where we are going to actually be dealing with things like break, continue, and then pass. Okay, and we're going to basically take a look at all those things as we move along. But what I want to pay my attention to right now is actually conditional statements. Okay, that's just basically what I want to pay attention to. And within conditional statements, we're going to take a look at if, elif, and that of the else statement. So without wasting more time, let's get into our development environment and see how we can actually demonstrate this. So within my development environment right here, I already created a file that is actually called a conditional.py, and you can go ahead and then create yours right now. And I do basically have two lines of a comments here, which is control structures, and that's basically the topic we're talking about. And then we're basically focusing on conditional statements. Okay, and that is it right here. So let's go ahead and then create two variables right here. The first one is actually going to be x, and I'm going to just set that to be equal to, let's say this is actually going to be 20. And I'm going to create a second one, which I'm going to just basically call y, and let's set that to 30. Okay, and then we're going to actually use these two lines of code right here to actually experiment and then find out what if, elif, and that of the else statement actually mean. Okay, so what I want to do first of all is to compare these two things right here. I want to know which one is actually the greatest one. Okay, I'm talking about the values. So to do that, I'm going to just say if x is actually, let's say, is greater than that of the y, what do you basically want to do? So remember that I'm adding colon right here, and I know that in other programming language we do not actually need this colon right here. In fact, the syntax for other programming languages like that of the JavaScript, PHP is to just go ahead and add something like brackets right here. We're going to just go ahead and close the bracket, and then we'll go ahead and enter something like curly bracket right here, and then we can actually go ahead and then print out whatever we want to print. But Python actually has a different approach to this. Okay, so let me just take it back to what we used to have. So with that of the Python, we just basically need to say if, and then mention the variable name. You can use your what is it called, your sign right there, which is the sign of greater than sign, and we're just trying to compare that with the second variable. Okay, but down here, or at the end right here, you're going to have to add a colon right there, and then you can press enter down here, and notice that that's a kind of a choice to leave some spaces from the left right here. Okay, which is actually the intention. And it's really very, very important that you do that. You need to leave some spaces from the left. Otherwise, it's actually not going to print out your result for you. It's going to complain, because indentation is actually very, very important in that of the Python development. Okay, so we also see more of that as we move along. What I'm going to do right now, since I said if x right here is greater than y, what do you want to print? So we can actually say something like print. We use print statement, and then within this print statement, I'm going to throw in my quotation, and then I can say something like x is greater than y. Okay, which if we save right now, and I want to run this by right clicking on this page, and we can click on run conditional. If you take a look down here, you see that that result was not actually printed on the screen for us because it's actually false. Okay, x right here is actually 20, and it is not actually greater than that of the 30 right here. Okay, that is why we do not actually have anything down here, and that brings us to the fact that we also need to like treat the other part of it. But however, had it been that x is actually greater than that of the 30, which is down there, you are going to notice that this line is actually going to get printed. For instance, let's swap these values right here. I'm going to cut this, put it up here, and then bring down 20 right here. Okay, so if we save the changes and then we'll run this again, you see that we now have x is greater than that of the y, because we now swap the values. You see that 30 is basically greater than that of the 20 right here. So that just it on if statement, guys. The next thing I want to show you guys is, let's say we did not actually indent this right now. Let's say we start this from this particular place. We save these changes right now, and then we'll try to run this line of code. Let's try to save that and then try to run that. you notice that we get an error right here. Okay, it's not because the code is really all that wrong, but it's because of the indentation. Okay, so that's why I say that indentation is really very important in Python. Okay, so you need to make sure that you indent this to move a little bit away to the right this way, otherwise you're going to basically get that kind of error. So if I save the changes and then run again, you notice that the result actually comes back. So this is really very important. Now moving on to the next thing that we want to do right here, I want to change back these values to what it used to be, which is 20, and then this one is actually 30. Okay, which if we save and then run, you are going to see that it disappears. We won't see any result right here because it's not actually true that x is actually greater than that of the y. Okay, so if by now you must have understood that we've actually gotten that of the if statement out of the way. But now that the condition is actually not met, we need to provide an else statement, okay, or else part, an alternative for this. Okay, and to do that is really very simple. What I want to do right now is that I want to get down in here and I want to make sure that I take this to the beginning of the line, and we can actually use something like else, or I mean an elif or else statements to do that. So what I want to do right now, I want to make use of the else statement. So I'm going to copy that and then paste that on this line, and we can add our colon. And down here, what do we basically want to do? I want to copy this line right here. So what that means is that in a situation where this particular condition is actually not met, what do you want to print to your users? Okay, so we can go ahead and enter whatever statement that we want right here. Okay, we can basically say something like x is not greater than y. Okay, let's do that. X is not greater than y, or x and y are equal. Okay, we can do something of that nature right there. And let's go ahead and then run this code again. And if you take a look in there, you see that x is not greater than y, or x and y are equal. Okay, so if you take a look at that, the truth is that x is actually not greater than y, and that is why it cannot actually print this particular condition out for us. That's why we went ahead to print this particular one. And if we try to make this equal right here, let's make that 20 20, and also go ahead and then run that. You see that it still prints out x is not greater than y, or x and y are actually equal. Okay, so it has actually checked and then see that that is actually valid. That's why it's really printing out this particular thing in here. So now the question is, how can we actually test this one that says elif, and what does it actually really mean? So in my own understanding, I'm thinking that this elif right here actually gives a room for you to test another condition. Okay, so in a situation where you want to test another condition, you can actually use something like elif. So I want you to think of this as something like else if you are using something like if you are using something like PHP and that of the JavaScript. So I'm talking about other programming languages. So with Python, they are using something like elif. Okay, but other programming languages, they use something like else if. Okay, that's just what elif means in Python. Okay, so and we're going to basically test that right now. So I'm going to copy this right now, and before we basically get into this particular place, I want to make sure that I put that just before that elif that we have in there. Okay, so I want to put it right here. So I'm going to copy and paste that, and we can actually, just like I said, that you can actually use it to test for other conditions. So to do that is very simple. What we can do right here is to go ahead and then bring in another statement or condition right here. All right, so if let's go ahead and use this for the equality part of it. Let's say that x is actually equal to y, which in our condition right here is actually met. We want to go ahead and print out some sort of result right here. So I'm going to add my colon right here, and then down here, what I basically want to do is that I want to copy this print statement again right here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that right here. And what I basically want to say is that x and y are actually equal. Okay, so that means I'm going to take this away. Okay, so else we can see a different statement down here, which we can actually say that down here we can just choose another statement right here. We can basically say something like, let's say y. I'm going to just say y is greater than, so I'm going to just say y is greater than x right here. Okay, let's put x, and then we can delete this statement right here. Okay, so let's save this, and if we scroll to the top, let me explain this again. If you take a look at it here, we have two variables right here, x and y, and the two of them, the values are actually the same. This is 20 and this is 20 down here. So we're saying within the first statement that if x is actually greater than y, you should go ahead and print x is greater than y, which in our condition right here is actually not greater than that, and it will not print this. That's what it means. Then under this place where we have elif right here, we're saying that x is actually equal to y, and If you take a look at our condition right here, we have 20 for x and then we have 20 for y, which means that they're actually equal. So this line, I expect this line to actually be printed on the screen for us. Okay, otherwise, what we are going to basically have in here, this one is actually not going to print out at this moment unless we ever try to make sure that y is actually greater than that of the x. Okay, so I want to save the changes right here and then run this particular code. And if you take a look in here, you're going to see that x and y are equal. Okay, so this particular line is getting printed on the screen for us. X and y are actually equal. So that's just how to also test for that of the Elif. So if you have something more that you actually want to test, this is just like I say, you should treat this like something like else if, okay, in other programming languages. Okay, so if you want more conditions to actually test out, you can make use of Elif to do that. Okay, so that is just what that is. And if we try to make this, let's make this something like 40 right now, you're going to notice that this line will not be printed again. However, the line that is actually going to be printed now is actually going to be this particular one. Okay, so let's test that by running this. And if you take a look at that, you see that y is greater than x down here. Okay, so that's the result. And I hope that this is really simple enough for you guys to actually understand what is embedded in that of the conditional statement in Python. Okay, this is really very simple, right? And we are actually going to take a look at something like loop at a later time. And if you like this, just try to give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.